Hi, my name's Chris Dixon. This is Founder Stories. Today we have Jason Jacobs, the co-founder and CEO of RunKeeper. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
So tell me about RunKeeper.
So RunKeeper is a mobile fitness platform for runners and other fitness enthusiasts. It enables people to track, measure, and improve their running as well as increasingly other aspects of their health.
Cool. So how did you come up with this idea, and what was your background before? This is your first company you started, right?
It is, yeah. It's the first company I started. Never written a lick of code. Never been a user experience person or a product manager.
Mm-hmm.
Never done anything consumer. So there's been a whole number of firsts. But so all of my experience was working in small, fast-growing, venture-backed technology companies. Mm-hmm. And always in functional roles on the people side of the business. Recruiting, sales, business development, got my MBA. And in 2007, I was training for a marathon at the same time that I was looking for some big, important problem to solve in an area that I was deeply passionate about, that I could tackle over a number of years and try to build a big, meaningful company that could change the world in some small way for the better. And during this training, I was using Nike Plus as part of this training. And I remember thinking at the time that what these guys were doing was really interesting, because they were the first digital fitness platform that I had seen that wasn't focusing on hardcore fitness enthusiasts or hardcore data junkies. They were focused on the normals, mm-hmm. The people like you and I that don't necessarily need complex charts and graphs and spreadsheets. They just want it to be simple, easy to use, fun, social. And it was like, wow, that's really powerful. Why are these guys the only ones doing this? Why is it just being done around one pedometer in one pair of shoes for one sport as a little side project from a brand? With all of the innovation that's going to happen in the years to come, not just in running sensors, but in all kinds of sports, and not just in sports, but in all aspects of your health, why isn't somebody building an independent open platform that aggregates the data from all these emerging sensors and focuses on it as their only thing?
Yeah. Now, so you're primarily an app, like on the iPhone, I guess Android too, I presume, right? A lot of those apps, sell for $2 or whatever, and they're sort of smaller businesses. You raised venture capital, which means you've sort of now chosen to go the route of trying to create a $1 billion company.
For sure.
Can you talk about that decision and then I guess a little bit about the vision of how you kind of become that $1 billion company?
Yeah, so the vision that I just laid out about the independent open health platform that aggregates the data from all these emerging sensors, that was there before there was an app. That was there before I quit my job. But as we were gearing up to build this platform, uncovered what was happening with smartphones and decided that one, we shouldn't try to be everything to everybody. And in fact, we think no company in health can ever be everything to everybody. Health is way too vast. So let's do running first, and let's do it really well. And so we're gearing up to build this platform for runners, and uncovered what was happening with smartphones and said, wow, these phones are increasingly having GPS in them, and this app store is coming out so that you don't have to deal with getting on carrier decks or things like that. Let's, instead of integrating with all the existing devices like Garmin watches and stuff like that, let's enable the phone to be a fitness tracking device so you don't need any other hardware. And so we started there. We built one of the first 200 apps in the whole iPhone App Store. And so the way this progressed is that first we built up a community of millions of users using their phone to track their running, first on the iPhone and then ultimately on several smartphone platforms. But we quickly saw that these users weren't just using our app to track their runs, but they were using a bunch of these other applications and devices to track other aspects of their health. So things like Wi-Fi body scales, pedometers, sleep monitoring devices, heart rate monitors, strength training apps.
Like Dennis Crowley, it automatically tweets out like my weight is such and such or whatever. And I see, and RunKeeper tweets too, I think, of people like, I just rode my bike this far, this fast or something, right? Like.
Yeah, so the way our app was giving people accountability around their running, there were applications and devices giving people accountability around all different aspects of their health. And That's really exciting. I mean, that's progress. But what started to happen was that as all of these different apps and devices proliferated, my experience as an end user, your experience as an end user, people that use this stuff, it starts to get more fragmented because we found that our users were having to go 10 different places to keep track of 10 different things. So very early, we started integrating with some of these third-party devices across different aspects of your health. So the WeThink Scale was the first one we integrated with. We integrated with Fitbit. We integrated with Zio, which is a sleep monitoring device, a couple of others, and just got really strong validation from users that the more aspects of their health they were tracking, the more engaged they were over time, the better the results they were getting on our platform. And from the device manufacturer standpoint, we were a great channel to help them sell more devices. And that's when we really started realizing that there was something much, much bigger here.
Mm-hmm. And you're based in Boston, right?
We are.
Which is, for, I guess, slightly, well, for whatever reason, people don't think of Boston these days as being sort of consumer app/internet focused. What's your impression of this Boston scene? Has that been helpful, hurtful to you, or?
We don't think a lot about it.
Yeah.
I think
my last company was there, and we just had a lot of trouble finding consumer marketing people, for example. Like, just the talent pool was just very, very enterprise and infrastructure focused.
So I think that there are certain functions where there are less people with that expertise in Boston, and so consumer marketing would be one example. Really highly scalable, kind of platform type systems. Maybe another one. So things like DevOps or things like that. But in general, there's a lot of great technical talent in Boston, and in fact, many of the talent that ends up in places like New York or the Valley was schooled in Boston and left because they just didn't think there were enough reasons to stay. So for a company like us that's trying to build a big breakout consumer platform in Boston over a number of years that will hopefully be a very large sustaining company someday, that's actually a great place to be, because how many companies are doing that? So if you can turn the corner and become one of those companies, for people that want to do that thought they had to leave and go places like New York or the Valley, they don't have to go anymore because there's great opportunities for them right in their own backyard.
Yeah. And so what have been the biggest sort of surprises, challenges that it's your first company you started, you worked at venture-backed companies, but how has it been different being a founder?
It's a lot different. Yeah. So not only had I not been a founder, but I had just never been into a company, pre-funding, pre-revenue.
Did you raise money before the Spark OATV round, or?
So we raised 3 rounds of financing.
Okay.
Yeah, we raised $400K in 2009 from some angels. We raised just over $1 million in 2010, led by Bryce Roberts at OATV, and then we raised $10 million this past November. Bijan from Spark Capital, Bryce from OATV, and then Steve Case's Revolution Ventures also joined in. But we hadn't raised any. We waited, I think, close to 1.5 years before we raised our first dime of outside capital.
How was that process?
The process of raising capital?
Yeah.
So very early on, when I first quit my job in 2008, I thought, well, geesh, there's so much we could do if we had capital, so that means we should go get capital. And I started talking to angels, and I wasn't prepared. There were about 300 reasons why that was a bad idea. Quickly realized that, put our head back down. Because we had the app out of the gate and we were generating revenue, we were actually kind of ramen cash positive, if you will, because I wasn't taking a salary, and we had some moonlighting engineers that were working for equity. So I mean, we weren't truly cash positive, but we were taking in more than we were spending. So we didn't need to raise, and I'd saved some money, so I could have gone a while, not painlessly, but I could have gone a while without a salary. So we put our head back down and we didn't focus on it at all. And as we started growing and getting more traction, the business model started working, and organically we started bringing some of these moonlighters in full time. And then people started telling us, you should raise, you can raise, and people started coming inbound that wanted to invest. And we still blocked everyone out for quite a while because we didn't want to get distracted. There was so much we were doing, and plus the further we could go without it, then the more efficient process we would have, the higher the caliber of the investors we'd be able to attract, and the less of the company we'd have to give up in the process. So by the time we raised, we didn't need the money at all.
Yeah. I find that one of the the biggest mistakes people make as entrepreneurs is to raise, especially in the early stages, raising money too soon. People are throwing money at them right now. In a different environment 4 years ago, they would have had to have at least sort of developed the plan more or some points of validation. And I think what people don't realize is once they take that money, kind of the standards of how people judge them changes very quickly, right? So like I've seen like in the last week, one company that is about to take 12 months of capital, which I think prematurely, and I told them that they didn't, they have people giving them money, they don't care. Another company who had done that 12 months ago and now is probably going to be shutting down because they took money and people don't think they made enough progress, and it's sad. Whereas like, had they done what you did, it sounds like, and just sort of like gotten it to a certain point where they knew there was something there, they would have been okay. I don't know.
Yeah, and we didn't just do that in the initial round. I mean, even going back to this last round, which was a much larger round than we had ever taken before, we were getting a lot of press. We have strong user numbers and growth. I mean, if we wanted a preemptive round in a hot climate or whatever you want to call it, we probably could have gotten one. But we didn't even entertain those discussions, and we went through a rigorous first of all, we put it off for a while. And second of all, when we realized it was time to raise, it wasn't because we thought we could get it. It was because we saw this big thing and we saw how the pieces could connect to go after it and get it. And we wanted it very much. And preserving our optionality as far as smaller outcomes wasn't important to us because we would rather go after that big thing and either get there or go down with the ship, but not wonder what would have happened if we hadn't really gone for it. And so before we went out and raised, we went through this rigorous internal planning where it wasn't just to pull together investor materials, it was to really understand how much capital is the right amount and what are we going to do with it after we get it, and what is that going to mean in terms of what we think we can accomplish to get over that next milestone. We had a bunch of tough discussions internally. So it wasn't just a pretty org chart, it was an org chart that there was a lot of thought and substance that went behind. And so it made for not only a more efficient capital raising process, but once we had the money, we felt much more confident that we knew exactly what to do with it.